welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Angie and I'm a chemist who loves makeup. And today we're going to be talking about a recent controversy that occurred with quite a few Korean-based sunscreen brands, which actually resulted in most of them pulling their sunscreen products off the market in order to reformulate them. So I'm going to give my perspective as a chemist on the recent controversy and what I think can be taken away from the situation from a consumer perspective. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what happened. If you want to learn more about this whole situation in depth, I'm going to link Odaly, I think that's their name, their video down below as well as up in the cards, so you could check that out because they were very, very thorough. So the thing that kicked this all off was that somebody got the Purito brand sunscreen independently tested and it was found to have a significantly lower SPF than what the product claimed to have. And this led to Purito pulling it from the market and other brands also pulling it from the market. One of those brands being Krave Beauty with their Beet Shield formula. They also had it tested. They didn't share the results online for legal reasons, I'm assuming, but they also pulled theirs on the market and are looking to reformulate. And this happened with a lot of brands. It seems that this originated out of two manufacturers in which the manufacturers supplied results to these brands, which they then used on their marketing, did not match what the true SPF value was. Because of this, we're probably going to see a lack of Korean-based sunscreens for a while. So there is a suspected reason and why this happened. Odaly covers that in her video, is that in Korea, sunscreens are considered functional cosmetics, meaning that they have a purpose like skin lightening or sun protection, much like in the US, how we do have some cosmetic products such as sunscreens that are considered a drug product. And because it is a functional cosmetics, SPF testing results do have to be submitted to the Korean FDA. Whole issue of these formulas not meeting the SPF rating seems to stem from a loophole that is in the SPF testing regulations within Korea. And this loophole was put there in order to make it easier for brands to bring products to market. If you had a sunscreen product and you got this tested for SPF and it had and came up with a certain value, you could create a new product based on that original product, and as long as it didn't differ by too much, there's certain parameters, you will then be allowed to use said SPF rating from the original testing and use that as proof meets your SPF claim. The case in which this seems to be most appropriate is in terms of if you are going to have a foundation with an SPF rating. So if you have that and you're just varying it by colors and you want to have like 20 shades, instead of submitting for 20 different SPF testings, which should all be the same because the formula is identical other than the colorants, you would only have to submit one and those other ones would fall underneath it. The reason why this loophole suddenly became problematic is because I believe it was two of the sunscreen manufacturers in Korea. They had both created what was an original formula that was like a cream. I believe one of them had titanium dioxide in it, which is a sunscreen filter, but in this case they called it a colorant. And this original formula met those very high SPF values which these brands have been advertising. So as these brands tweaked it over time, I guess they were still falling within those technical parameters, but when you're going from a cream to a lotion and you're removing titanium dioxide, you're losing SPF value, and they never retested it. And the brands who were using this manufacturer just took this at face value. And this whole situation is just really unfortunate because I do know a lot of influencers in the skincare space have definitely been pushing that Korean sunscreens are better, that they are more elegant, and you still get the high SPF, and we've come to find out that's not really the case. Now, that being said, this whole not matching SPF value is not a Korea only issue. There have been instances multiple times in the US, in other countries, bigger brands, smaller brands, who have also suffered the same issue. Part of the reason is SPF testing isn't like other testing. So for instance, in your drug products, they will do things called an assay. An assay is literally testing for the actual concentration of an ingredient. So you have an exact numerical value that usually you don't get results that differ that much. But for an SPF value, you are using living beings. You are using human volunteers who have different skin types, who have different skin tones. They physically use UV light on their skin, and they test how long it takes for their skin to start showing a reaction to the sun after using the sunscreen. So this kind of testing is very dependent on individuals. And that's what makes it so tricky. That's why a lot of the results are all over the place, but still significantly lower than advertised. But going back to the issue, it is really unfortunate that it was really two manufacturers who kind of blew it for everybody. And I understand how this happened from some of these brands, because I don't believe most of these are major corporations who are developing formulas themselves. These are small brands who are wanting to have a sunscreen formula, and in that case they are trusting said manufacturer who is helping develop this formula to know what they are doing. And for the owners of these brands who are using these manufacturers, this is a really hard lesson in making sure that you do your own quality checks in every aspect. One of them being, you need to get that sunscreen independently tested by at least one other lab. In fact, it would probably be best to be able to do this on a yearly basis, to where you could just randomly pull one from a shipment, or if it's in physical stores, go buy it off of a store shelf, one that's actually being sold in the store, and get it tested, just to make sure that it comes close to that SPF claim. And it's very important to have your own people dedicated to quality in the brand, and not just those that are in the manufacturer's facility. Because at the end of the day, it's the brands who are ultimately going to suffer and have a harder time selling sunscreens down the road, most likely. So from a consumer perspective, the common question is, well, how can I protect myself and make sure that I'm getting the SPF that's advertised? And the hard truth of that is you can't really do that much on your end, other than trying to buy from a reputable brand. There's gonna be things that may slip through the cracks, but that's all you can really do. There is an amount of trust that you have to put into these brands, and so that's why that's my only advice for you. The second thing that we can learn from this is, do not let just sunscreen be your only form of sun protection. It's only one tool to try to protect yourself from UV rays of the sun. Part of this is wearing a hat, wearing sunglasses, wearing clothing with a UPF rating, trying to stay out of the sun, stay in the shade. All of these things are going to help mitigate the risk of sun damage, but not any one of them is going to 100% help you. So another thing is, if you own one of these sunscreens that is getting pulled off the market, this isn't a sign to just not use it. There is still some SPF coverage in there, so it will still have some protection, but maybe don't wear it for like a really long day at the beach. Maybe wear it when you know you're gonna get less sun exposure. We shouldn't waste product. So another issue I find here is selling across markets, by which I mean, in the US, there are certain UV filtered ingredients that you are allowed to use in your product and call them sunscreen ingredients and call your product a sunscreen. So if you're selling a sunscreen outside of the US and you want to sell it into the US, what is usually done? Well, they just don't call this product a sunscreen and call it like an environmental shield or something along those lines, but do not highlight the fact that it's a sunscreen, because they cannot legally sell it in the US as a sunscreen with the current filters that they have. So this is interesting, because with US-based sunscreens, if they were found to not have the proper SPF coverage or not have what they say because they are a drug product, they would have to be recalled, whether voluntarily by the brand, or if the brand refused, then the FDA would have to do it, but it usually never gets to that point. Usually it's always a voluntary recall. So this is an issue because you still have US-based customers buying this product, which is not labeled as a sunscreen, for the purpose of being a sunscreen. So we're gonna use Krave Beauty as an example. They're not the only one, they're just the one that we're using as an example because that's the one that I'm familiar with. The packaging on the product doesn't even look different other than a couple of words being changed up. But we have a lot of US-based influencers talking about how great this sunscreen is. I don't know if they mentioned technically it's not considered a sunscreen in the US, but they're mentioning this on their channels, and so people are buying it based off their recommendation, seeing this matches, seeing that this is sunscreen, and they may not even be aware of this kind of distinction made in the US. And I think the FDA actually does need to crack down on this. I agree that the US is behind in approving UV filters, and these should get approved here, but at the same time, I think it's a slippery slope to try to be skirting around rules in order to be able to sell your products to customers as a different product. The customers who are buying things from these Korean-based brands, these aren't customers that are walking into Sephora or Ulta and are seeing a product called the Beet Shield and are like, yes, that protects me from environmental factors. People are buying this product fully with the intention of protecting themselves from the sun, because you have influencers, US-based influencers, advertising this sunscreen based out of Korea and promoting its sun protection abilities. Or I've seen magazine articles about this. So people are seeing and being influenced by these sources of media to buy this for sun protection. And if the brand does not differentiate the name and the packaging enough where a customer can see that this is not the product that people were talking about, I think that that is not very ethical, in my opinion. Even if another regulatory body of another country would allow this to be marketed how it was. So I hope in the future that we do see these brands come back with sunscreens. I hope you guys learned something today. If you did, let me know down below. What do you think about this? Give me your opinion down below. And if you want to learn more about the science behind your makeup and skincare, don't forget to subscribe down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!